If you've ever tried to quit YouTube, you've probably told yourself it's different. It's educational, you said. It helps me learn something new. But most of the time, it doesn't. Most of the time, it's distraction, disguised as learning. Every hour you spend jumping from one video to the next chips away at your focus, your energy, and your ability to get meaningful work done. The truth is that quitting YouTube isn't about willpower. You don't need heroic self-control or extreme detoxes. You don't need to delete your account forever. What you need is a system that addresses the real reason you keep coming back. You need to understand the psychological loops that your brain has been trained to follow, the loops that make scrolling feel effortless and irresistible. The first thing to realize is that most advice you'll see online doesn't work. People will tell you to block the app, install a website blocker, or force yourself to resist. And yes, those measures can help, but only temporarily. The real issue isn't the app. The issue is the way your habits are wired. YouTube addiction isn't about the videos themselves, it's about how your brain responds to the reward system behind them. You open the app because your brain craves low-effort stimulation. You crave small bursts of dopamine to fill empty moments. That's why the most effective solution isn't deletion. It's learning to regain control over your attention and reclaim your time. The first loop I want to talk about is what I call the cognitive debt loop. This is where you watch self-improvement, educational, or productivity videos and convince yourself that you're learning. You feel productive, but in reality, you're building mental debt. Your brain equates consuming information with making progress, but nothing changes in your life. You sit there, absorbing content, thinking you're preparing for success, while your focus drifts and your output remains zero. Every video that doesn't lead to an actionable step adds to this invisible pile of cognitive debt. It's an invisible form of procrastination dressed up as progress. The way to break this loop is surprisingly simple. For every video you watch, you need to create at least one actionable takeaway. Keep a notebook or a document open. Every 10 minutes of content should produce at least one concrete step you can apply immediately. If you cannot extract a single actionable idea, you stop watching. This forces your brain to engage actively rather than passively. It turns learning into doing. Suddenly, many videos that used to feel productive now feel useless because they demand nothing from you. Your brain starts valuing output over consumption. That's how you break the illusion of productivity and regain control over your attention. The second loop is what I call the novelty trap. YouTube isn't addictive because the videos are inherently fascinating. It's addictive because your brain is trained to expect continuous novelty. Every new title, every new thumbnail, every jump cut is a tiny reward that keeps your brain scrolling automatically. Shorts, in particular, are engineered for this. They train your mind to chase low-effort stimulation and keep the dopamine flowing, often without you even noticing. You're not watching content because you need it. You're watching it because your brain has been conditioned to seek predictable bursts of reward. Breaking the novelty trap requires what I like to call friction engineering. You don't need to block YouTube completely. You simply need to make consumption slightly harder. Small friction is enough to interrupt automatic behavior. On a desktop, you can add a 15-second loading delay for YouTube pages. That small pause gives your rational brain a chance to intervene. On a mobile device, move the YouTube app 3 folders deep and replace the icon with something generic, something visually unappealing. If possible, force videos into grayscale. This reduces the subconscious pull of bright, stimulating visuals. These small adjustments don't prevent access, but they slow your impulses just enough to regain control. Once your brain notices that reward is no longer immediate and effortless, the automatic urge to scroll diminishes. The third and final loop is the identity drift, and it's the deepest of them all. This loop explains the guilt you feel after binge watching. You see yourself as capable, ambitious, and productive. Your actions, however, tell a different story. The discrepancy between who you are and what you do creates tension, guilt, and self-sabotage. Every hour spent mindlessly scrolling undermines the identity you claim for yourself. You're not lazy, you're just misaligned. Breaking this loop is about reconnecting your actions with the person you want to be. It's about defining your success identity and aligning your behaviors with it. To fix the identity drift, define 3 core verbs that represent your highest priorities. For example, you might choose writes, builds, and learns. Every free hour should be spent executing one of these verbs. Watching a tutorial only counts if it contributes directly to one of them. Working on a project? Aligned. Mindless scrolling? Misaligned. This way, decisions aren't about resisting temptation, they're about acting with integrity. Every choice either reinforces your identity or erodes it. When your actions consistently reflect your values, YouTube stops being a temptation. Your brain no longer sees scrolling as a reward, it sees it as misalignment. Applying these 3 loops together creates a systematic approach to regain control over your attention. Start with the cognitive debt loop. Take notes, extract actionable steps, and stop passive consumption. Then tackle the novelty trap. Introduce friction, grayscale, or delays to interrupt automatic scrolling. Finally, address the identity drift by defining your core verbs and aligning your actions with them. Together, these steps don't rely on willpower, they rely on structured, science-based habit architecture. You don't need extreme discipline. You need a system that works with your brain, not against it. Once you free yourself from the loops, you have hours of reclaimed time each week. This is where transformation happens. You can use this time to write, create, build, exercise, or learn intentionally. You can replace mindless scrolling with activities that compound over time and produce tangible results. The brain thrives on meaningful engagement, not cheap dopamine hits. By consistently investing your attention in high-value activities, you train your brain to seek reward from output rather than consumption. Over weeks and months, this becomes automatic. You're no longer a victim of the platform, you become a master of your own attention. It's also important to remember that YouTube itself isn't inherently bad. It's a tool. The problem arises when your habits allow the platform to hijack your focus and dictate your priorities. By addressing the loops, you regain control. You don't need to quit entirely. You don't need to block every video. You just need to make consumption intentional, aligned with your identity, and productive. The moment you do this, the addictive power of YouTube diminishes, almost immediately. What seemed impossible before becomes entirely manageable. In practical terms, start small. Pick one loop and implement the fix for 1 week. Track your behavior. Notice how much time you reclaim. Then, implement the next loop. Build the system gradually. Don't rely on brute force or willpower. Rely on the architecture of your brain and the principles of behavioral science. Measure your output, adjust your system, and iterate. The platform will always try to pull you back in, but you now have a toolkit to resist, to redirect, and to transform your attention into something meaningful. As you continue, notice the changes. You feel more in control. You finish tasks faster. You feel less mental clutter and more clarity. Your energy increases. You no longer scroll automatically during idle moments. You replace those hours with actions that reflect your ambitions and your identity. Every small step compounds into real progress. You're no longer distracted. You are deliberate. You are no longer reactive. You are proactive. That is the ultimate power of breaking these loops. At the end of the day, quitting YouTube isn't about deprivation. It's about alignment. It's about matching your actions with your goals, values, and identity. It's about taking control of your attention in a world designed to steal it. The moment you master this, YouTube becomes a tool rather than a trap. You watch what you want, when you want, intentionally. The guilt disappears. The wasted hours vanish. What's left is time, focus, and energy to build the life you actually want. Start now. Define your 3 core identity verbs. Begin taking notes on every video you watch. Introduce friction to break mindless scrolling. Slowly, deliberately, reclaim your attention. You will notice the difference in days, the transformation in weeks, and over months, your habits will align entirely with the person you want to become. The addictive loops lose their power because they no longer serve you. You become intentional, focused, and unstoppable. The path isn't complicated, but it does require awareness and structure. By understanding the cognitive debt loop, the novelty trap, and the identity drift, you now have a roadmap that works with your brain instead of against it. Quitting YouTube isn't heroic. It's systematic, it's science-based, and it's entirely achievable. The question is simple. Will you start today?